The jarring reverberation of my own front door crashing shut in my face still echoes through my mind 6 months later. No ordinary door, this. This was the entrance to the lake house, a sanctuary acquired through relentless toil, profound sacrifice, and every hard-earned penny. The very dwelling where my sister, Kayla, had just declared there was no space for me, callously suggesting I spend the night in my vehicle, like an uninvited transient. Standing there in the deepening gloom, listening to my family's boisterous laughter and revelry inside what was supposed to be my haven, a profound realization dawned, irrevocably altering my perspective. Sometimes the individuals who are presumed to love you most are actually the ones systematically draining your vitality. I am Avery, and this is a chronicle of how I transitioned from being my family's personal cash cow to becoming the antagonist in their warped narrative, solely because I finally discovered the fortitude to utter that single, powerful word, no. Let me begin by describing the person I was before everything fragmented. At 31, I believed I had truly made it. After relentlessly toiling through grueling 60-hour work weeks, immersing myself in programming languages until my vision blurred from exhaustion, and consistently demonstrating my capabilities in a demanding tech industry often unreceptive to women like me, I was finally commanding a substantial income. The kind that afforded peaceful slumber. The kind that erased the gnawing anxiety that once accompanied grocery shopping. 3 years prior, I'd managed to secure my inaugural true abode, a 2-bedroom apartment where I could finally entertain guests without cringing at the chipped paint and mismatched, pre-owned furnishings. After years of subsisting on instant noodles and wearing threadbare thrift store attire until it disintegrated, it felt like a triumphant conquest. But honestly, it was nothing compared to what transpired next. That's when I discovered the lake house. The moment I stepped across that threshold, something irrevocably aligned. 2 bedrooms, an expansive deck overlooking crystal-clear water revealing its depths, and ample room for deep concentration when grappling with intricate coding challenges. The tranquility it offered was a stark contrast to my upbringing in our perpetually constricted family dwelling. No urban clamor, no shrill sirens, merely the gentle lapping of water against the shore and the whisper of wind through venerable oak trees. I scrupulously hoarded every penny for 8 months. I forewent dining out, cycled through a mere trio of work ensembles, and nursed my decrepit Honda until its transmission wailed like a mortally wounded beast. But I did it. I acquired that residence outright. No looming mortgage like a perpetual threat, no recurrent payments to fret over, just unadulterated, unburdened ownership of a magnificent sanctuary that was unequivocally mine. Now, concerning my family, grasping their dynamics is essential to comprehending the spectacular unraveling of events. Mom, a lifelong secretary, had mastered the art of enduring all indignities with a polite smile, never voicing a complaint until her retirement last year. Dad, a maintenance worker at the local school, performs honest labor that consumes his time but yields meager remuneration. Justin, my younger brother at 28, flits between jobs as if perpetually allergic to the notion of settling long enough for career advancement. Presently, he's at some warehouse, but there's always constant drama surrounding his hours, his supervisor, the uniform, whatever perceived grievance made his current existence arduous. Then there's Kayla, 25, working part-time retail while purportedly pursuing some certification that never seems to materialize. She's perfected the insidious art of externalizing blame, particularly when I was the convenient scapegoat. Herein lies the crux that made every family dinner feel like navigating a minefield. My income dwarfed theirs, often by a factor of 4. Yet, in their warped perception, this financial disparity inexplicably cast me as the antagonist. It commenced insidiously, as such situations invariably do. Justin struggled to meet his monthly rent, so I discreetly covered it. Kayla's vehicle broke down, and I contributed to the repairs. My parents, burdened by exorbitant electric bills during a scorching summer, found relief in my intervention. I genuinely harbored no resentment toward assisting them. After all, was not familial reciprocity the bedrock of our upbringing? But then something shifted. It ceased being a request. The expectation of gratitude vanished. It simply became an entitlement. I started remitting Justin $800 every month for his studio apartment. Kayla received $1,100 for her 1-bedroom. Mom received $400 monthly for utilities and groceries, plus whatever cash I discreetly slipped them during visits. Calculate the sum. Over $2,300 monthly simply evaporated. But I persisted in these remittances, convinced it was the dutiful course for a commendable daughter and sister. The thinly veiled criticisms began subtly, escalating into verbal lacerations, like unnoticed paper cuts that only reveal their damage when blood begins to seep. I'd arrive at Sunday dinner with a new handbag, a modest Target tote, my inaugural personal acquisition in 2 years, and Kayla would fix me with a gaze of incredulous disdain, as if I'd arrived draped in diamonds. How convenient to indulge every whim while others grapple with the crushing burden of bills, she'd utter, her voice laden with thinly disguised resentment. I hadn't acquired anything new for myself in months. This was the first bag I'd purchased in years, and it wasn't even expensive. But abruptly, I was vilified for expending my own funds on a genuine necessity. Justin did it, too, always with a subtly aggressive undertone that set my teeth on edge. "Hey, Avery. Noticed your new shoes. Meanwhile, I'm back to a diet of rice and beans, thanks to reduced work hours." Never mind that I had just covered his rent, and he had just squandered his funds on an exorbitant concert with his companions, brazenly broadcasting images of their lavish revelry on Instagram. The duplicity was breathtaking, yet to articulate it would merely cast me as petty and vindictive. Dad usually maintained silence during these exchanges, but he'd nod in tacit agreement, endorsing their spurious claims. Mom, in her characteristically passive-aggressive manner, would attempt to placate the situation, invariably exacerbating it. "Oh, you know your brother and sister. They simply yearn for your advantages." Advantages? As if I'd somehow won a cosmic lottery rather than arduously earning every single thing I possessed. The worst part was how they referred to my achievements as though they were pure serendipity. As if I hadn't spent 4 years pursuing computer science while laboring through night shifts at a diner to fund my education, returning home with aching feet and grease beneath my fingernails, only to delve into algorithms until the early hours. As if I hadn't put in those grueling 60-hour work weeks for 2 consecutive years, consistently the first to arrive and the last to depart, driven by an unyielding need to prove my worth. As if I hadn't independently mastered 3 programming languages, forsaking countless weekends and social engagements to secure career advancement. Some individuals simply seem to catch all the favorable turns. Justin once remarked at a family barbecue, his words delivered directly to me with a bitter, unsettling smirk that churned my stomach. I wanted to inquire what breaks he imagined I'd received, but I exercised my habitual restraint. I had no desire to ignite altercations or render family gatherings even more strained than they already were. So, I started gradually withdrawing. Instead of weekly Sunday gatherings, I'd attend perhaps twice a month. Rather than lingering for hours, I'd dine swiftly and fabricate a pretext for an early departure. The lake house transformed into my inviolable sanctuary, the sole haven where I could truly exhale without the pervasive reminder of my perceived obligation simply for existing. When I finally told them about acquiring the place, I was so effervescent with excitement I could barely contain my elation. I anticipated their genuine happiness, perhaps even a flicker of pride. Instead, the entire table fell into an abrupt, unsettling silence. "You acquired what?" Mom asked, gently lowering her fork, as if I had just confessed to a grievous transgression. "A house by the lake. It's about an hour north of here. Truly peaceful. Excellent for working from home when I need to focus." Justin issued a mirthless chuckle, a hollow sound that constricted my chest. "Good God, Avery, another house? How much wealth do you truly require?" "It's not about material accumulation," I stated, striving to maintain an even tone despite my trembling hands concealed beneath the table. "I labor diligently, I meticulously save, and I desired a personal haven for respite." "Relaxation," Kayla echoed, as if it were an alien concept utterly foreign to her lexicon. "How delightful! Some of us can't even afford to relax in our own apartments because we're worried about making rent." "I contribute to your rent," I pointed out, feeling heat rise in my cheeks. "Right. But think about the myriad other applications for that capital," Mom interjected, gesticulating wildly as if conducting an unseen symphony. "We could have repaired the roof here, renovated the bathroom, or finally installed that new furnace we've discussed for ages. You should have consulted us first. I stared, utterly aghast. Her words landed like a physical blow. Consult you? It is my earned capital, Mother. I retain the sole prerogative to dictate its allocation. The ensuing silence was suffocatingly oppressive. Dad cleared his throat, meticulously scrutinizing his plate as though it contained the arcane secrets of the cosmos. Justin shook his head, as if I'd uttered an unforgivable sacrilege. Kayla remained impassive, a self-satisfied smirk plastered on her face, as if she triumphed in a debate I hadn't even realized was underway. I'd like to see this house, Kayla finally stated, breaking the tension. Every primal instinct screamed a warning, yet I inexplicably disregarded it. Certainly, I replied, though alarm bells were already pealing in my head. I'll provide you with the address. Perhaps you could pay a visit next weekend. That next Friday, I drove up to spend a quiet night unpacking and establishing my workspace. Saturday morning, I was on the deck with my coffee, watching the sunrise paint the water gold, when I heard Dad's pickup truck grinding down the gravel driveway. They all disembarked, Mom, Dad, Justin, and Kayla, and simply stood there, scrutinizing the place as if it were a property up for auction. The house sits about 50 feet back from the water, with a generous yard and venerable oak trees providing ample seclusion from neighboring properties. I gave them the full tour, and honestly, they seemed, for once, genuinely captivated. Justin loved the expansive living room with its stone fireplace. Mom kept remarking on its peacefulness, how she could envision herself reading on the deck. Kayla immediately laid claim to the guest bedroom and inquired if she could stay the night. Do you know what I said? Sunday morning, watching them all languidly sprawled across my living room as if it were their undisputed dominion, I said, You are welcome to utilize the residence in my absence. Simply provide prior notification to avoid scheduling conflicts. Before they left, I entrusted Mom with a spare key. It felt like the appropriate gesture, an embodiment of familial assistance, a sharing of the fruits of my arduous labor. For about 6 months, everything proceeded without incident. They'd text, inquiring if they could use the house for a weekend. I'd assent, and they'd head up there. I'd usually find things largely as I'd left it, perhaps a few misplaced dishes or towels requiring attention. Nothing significant. Then one Friday, after finishing a particularly grueling coding endeavor that had monopolized 3 weeks of my life, I resolved to treat myself to a solitary retreat for much-needed decompression. I impulsively packed a bag and drove north, without informing a soul. The moment I stepped across that threshold, I knew with chilling certainty that something was profoundly amiss. The air was thick with the reek of stale beer and cigarettes, an olfactory assault that struck me with the force of a physical blow. Empty pizza boxes formed a greasy, precarious tower of blatant disrespect on my kitchen counter. Discarded bottles littered every available surface, the coffee table, windowsills, even the mantelpiece. A viscous, unidentified liquid had been spilled across my hardwood floors, causing my shoes to adhere with every hesitant step. My pristine white couch, the result of months of diligent saving, weeks of meticulous research and price comparison, bore unspeakable stains I dared not identify. In the guest room, sheets and blankets were strewn haphazardly as if a chaotic tempest had swept through the room. The bathroom was an abomination. Soaked towels lay discarded on the floor, toothpaste smeared across the mirror in a grotesque parody of abstract art, and a repulsive mass of hair clogged the sink drain. I was beyond infuriated. I paced, my hands trembling as I meticulously photographed every scene, documenting the desecration of my sanctuary. This was no mere disarray, this was outright vandalism. Someone had unequivocally hosted a wild revelry, treating my home like a transient, disposable motel room. I spent the entire weekend in a relentless purgatorial cycle of cleaning, scrubbing floors on hands and knees until my back screamed in protest, laundering every textile, and desperately applying every conceivable product to exorcise the myriad stains from my furniture. By Sunday evening, my hands were raw and abraded from harsh cleaning chemicals, and my entire body ached with profound fatigue. But the house had finally been restored to its former state. Monday after work, I drove straight to my parents' home. Justin and Kayla were both there for dinner, which was ideal, as I intended to confront them collectively. "We must address the recent incident at the lake house," I stated, retrieving my phone to display the photographic evidence. Kayla glanced cursorily at the images and merely shrugged, as if dismissing a triviality. "Oh, that? Yeah, I had some friends over last weekend." "Some friends?" "Kayla, observe these images. There's food inextricably ground into the carpet, beer splattered indiscriminately, and cigarette burns marring my deck furniture." "It's your residence," Kayla retorted, waving her hand with dismissive indifference. "Therefore, it is incumbent upon you to clean it." I stared at her, utterly dumbfounded. "But you made the mess." Justin nodded, as if Kayla had made a perfectly reasonable assertion. "She has a valid point, Avery. As the property owner, you are surely affluent enough to engage a professional cleaning service anyway," Mom interjected with a patronizing tone that made my teeth clench in irritation. Dad leaned back, arms crossed, adopting a posture of detached judgment. "Kayla is correct. You're exaggerating a minor inconvenience into a major catastrophe. This constitutes mere typical wear and tear." "Mere typical wear and tear?" I held aloft a photograph of pizza sauce grotesquely splattered across my pristine white living room wall. "This is entirely normal." "You're being overly theatrical," Kayla asserted. "We're family. Kin do not tally trivial scores concerning matters like domestic upkeep." A decisive rupture occurred within me. "I require the return of the key," I stated, extending my hand toward Mom. "Avery, do not act precipitously," she began. "The key now. None of you will be permitted to return until you truly comprehend the depth of your ingratitude." Mom's expression hardened into a rigid mask. She retrieved the key from her purse and, without a single utterance, slapped it into my open palm. I walked toward the door, and Dad's voice, laced with condemnation, pursued me. "You are abandoning your entire family over nothing." I departed without a retort. 3 months elapsed, marked by an absolute silence from them. Not a single call. No apologies, no requests for funds, not even a cursory inquiry into my well-being. Yet, I continued to shoulder their financial burdens, Justin and Kayla's rent, Mom's utilities, out of ingrained habit. Old patterns proved stubbornly resilient. I rarely frequented the lake house during that period. Work was ceaseless, and candidly, the property felt defiled by the preceding events. But finally, I completed a colossal project that had consumed my existence for months. I resolved to take a full week's sabbatical, intending to retreat to the lake house and reestablish my connection with the tangible embodiment of my investment. Friday evening, I loaded up my car with provisions for the week. I was anticipating 7 uninterrupted days of leisurely mornings, immersing myself in books on the deck, and perhaps engaging in some light professional tasks from my upstairs office. But when I pulled into the driveway, every single light in the residence blazed forth. Music blared with such intensity it drowned out the roar of my car engine. My initial thought was a break-in, but intruders rarely herald their arrival with a boisterous dance party. I walked up to the front door and attempted to unlock it with my key. It refused to turn. Someone had deliberately left their key in the interior side of the lock, completely obstructing mine. I pounded forcefully on my own front door. After a few seconds, Mom opened it. Her expression registered surprise at my presence. Not fear or contrition, merely astonishment, as if I were the trespasser. "Avery, what are you doing here?" "This is my house, Mom." "What are you doing here?" She shrugged with a casual indifference that made my blood boil. "I had a duplicate key fashioned before returning the original to you. We simply decided to host a small family gathering tonight." I looked past her into the living room and was utterly dumbfounded by the sight that greeted me. The place was teeming with people. Dad, Justin accompanied by an unfamiliar girl. Kayla with her boyfriend, and what appeared to be half our extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins I encountered solely at weddings. They all waved cheerily, then instantly resumed their conversations, behaving as if this entire scenario were utterly commonplace. "You had a duplicate key fashioned without informing me?" I asked, my voice rising. "Do not disrupt everyone's enjoyment," Mom cautioned, still barring the entrance. "We'll be out of here Sunday night." I wish to gain entry. I have luggage in my vehicle, and I need to deposit my belongings in my room. It was then that Kayla materialized beside Mom, her smile saccharine and insincere, a smile I longed to erase. "Apologies, but there's no available space for you. Both bedrooms are occupied, and all couches are claimed. If you truly require lodging, your car remains an option." Before I could find words, Mom and Kayla exchanged a glance, then retreated, slamming the door resoundingly in my face. I walked back to my car and remained ensconced in my vehicle for approximately 10 minutes, striving to process the profound affront I had just endured. A part of me wanted to summon the authorities immediately and have them all apprehended for criminal trespass. They possessed no legal entitlement to be within my dwelling. I had reclaimed the key, explicitly rescinded their welcome, and they had illicitly duplicated it. Yet, they remained my kin. As enraged as I was, the mere contemplation of witnessing my parents being handcuffed and confined to a police cruiser evoked a visceral repulsion. So, I opted for an alternative course of action. I drove home to my apartment, unpacked the week's worth of provisions, then settled before my computer. I accessed my bank account and initiated the systematic cancellation of payments. First, I terminated the automated rent disbursements for Justin's studio apartment. Next, Kayla's rent payments. Finally, I rescinded the monthly transfer designated for Mom's utilities and groceries. A profound sense of liberation washed over me. It felt exceptionally, undeniably good. For 3 arduous years, I had been remitting over $2,300 to them monthly. What was my recompense? Caustic remarks regarding my expenditures, sanctimonious lectures on my perceived obligation to share more generously, and now this egregious indignity, locked out of my own home and disdainfully instructed to sleep in my car. Saturday and Sunday dragged interminably. I attempted to divert myself with streaming content and apartment chores, yet an irrepressible curiosity gnawed at me concerning the events unfolding at the lake house. Sunday evening, I checked Kayla's Instagram. She had shared a plethora of photographs from what she brazenly dubbed our family vacation at the lake house. Not Avery's lake house, nor my sister's place, simply the lake house, as if it were a communal inheritance. The photos showed exactly what I expected: revelers consuming alcohol on my deck, an individual executing a cannonball off my private dock, and a group portrait in my living room, everyone clutching beer bottles and grinning with the ecstatic abandon of lottery winners. The caption proclaimed, "Best family weekend ever. Back to reality tomorrow." Monday morning, I drove back to the lake house. They were gone, but the devastation was unequivocal. Empty bottles and cans were ubiquitous. Food was thoroughly ground into the deck, cigarette butts polluted the lake near my dock. The interior, distressingly, surpassed the squalor of Kayla's initial party. It consumed the entirety of my day to meticulously cleanse the premises once more. Tuesday morning, I contacted a locksmith. "I require all the locks on my residence to be rekeyed. Can you attend to it today?" He arrived around noon and diligently replaced every lock, the front door, the back door, and the deadbolt I had installed upon my initial purchase. Next, I contacted a security firm. "I require a comprehensive alarm system, motion detectors, door sensors, and cameras encompassing the entire perimeter." They arrived on Wednesday and devoted the entire day to the installation. Surveillance cameras adorned every corner of the residence, motion sensors were strategically placed in the yard, door alarms secured every entry, and a central control panel was configured to dispatch immediate alerts directly to my phone. Should anyone so much as trespass on my property without explicit authorization, I would be instantly apprised. I spent the remainder of that week at the lake house, at last reveling in its serene tranquility. The newly implemented security system imbued me with a profound sense of safety, and frankly, it was liberating to inhabit the space without the pervasive dread of my family's unscheduled intrusion. Not a single one contacted me throughout that entire week. It was unclear if they hadn't yet attempted to pay their bills, or if they possessed sufficient savings and remained oblivious to my financial severance. Regardless, their silence spoke volumes. Their communication was, invariably, solely predicated on their needs. The next Friday evening, I was back in my apartment making dinner when my phone vibrated, signaling a security alert. I launched the application and observed the live camera feed from my lake house. Dad and Justin were pacing around the perimeter, attempting to peer through windows. Mom and Kayla stood positioned at the front door. Justin then inserted his key into the lock. When it proved ineffective, he tried again, jiggling it frantically and exerting force on the door. Dad joined him, attempting his own key. Futile. My phone began to ring, Mom's number. I did not answer. Then Kayla called, followed by Justin. I deliberately ignored every incoming call. On the camera, I watched Dad and Justin walk around to the back of the house. They found the sliding door that leads to the deck and tried to force it open. When that didn't work, Justin picked up one of my patio chairs. I realized he was about to shatter the glass. That's when I called 911. Someone is trying to break into my house, I told the dispatcher. I'm watching them on my security cameras right now. Are you at the property? No, I'm at home in the city, but they're definitely attempting to gain unauthorized entry. One of them just picked up a chair and appears poised to smash my sliding door. We're dispatching officers to the location now. I stayed on the line and kept watching the cameras. Justin then shattered the sliding door with the chair, stepping through the jagged glass into my living room. Dad followed closely. Moments later, they unlatched the front door from within, admitting Mom and Kayla. I observed, with chilling detachment, my family fan out through my home as if they held undisputed proprietorship. Kayla immediately headed to the kitchen, rummaging through cabinets. Mom ascended the stairs towards the bedrooms. Dad, meanwhile, was scrutinizing my new alarm control panel, undoubtedly attempting to deactivate it. Then I saw the police cruisers pull into my driveway, emergency lights flashing starkly. 2 officers disembarked and approached the front door, hands resting firmly on their holstered weapons. What happened next was precisely what I had dreaded, yet simultaneously, precisely what they merited. The officers issued sharp commands. My family emerged, hands raised in surrender, their faces a tableau of bewilderment and fear. Within 10 minutes, all 4 of them were handcuffed and confined to the rear of police cruisers. My phone rang. The police. Ma'am, we've detained 4 individuals who broke into your property. They're alleging to be your relatives. Can you corroborate their identities? I looked at their names and birth dates. Yes, those are my family members. Did you grant them authorization to enter your property this evening? No. I explicitly informed them they were prohibited from being on my property. They illicitly duplicated my keys, necessitating a complete lock replacement and the installation of a comprehensive security system. We will require your presence at the station to file a formal complaint. Can you attend tonight? I am indisposed. I fabricated. I will arrive first thing tomorrow morning. I terminated the call, poured myself a glass of wine, and powered down my phone. For the first time in years, I drifted into sleep with a faint, contented smile gracing my lips. Saturday morning, I leisurely prepared myself for the day. I crafted a satisfying breakfast, perused the news, and savored the profound irony that my family had spent the night incarcerated while I reposed peacefully in my own bed. Around 10 o'clock, I powered my phone back on. 37 missed calls, dozens of frantic text messages from unfamiliar numbers, presumably other relatives attempting to contact me. I promptly deleted all messages unread and drove to the police station. The officer at the front desk escorted me to a modest interview room where Detective Sullivan awaited with the requisite paperwork. Miss Carson, your family members are asking to speak with you. They've been here all night, and they're quite distressed. I have no doubt, I replied drily. Before we go any further, I need to ask, do you wish to pursue formal charges for breaking and entering? This constitutes a grave felony offense. They could face substantial incarceration. I thought about it. A part of me yearned to see them finally confront genuine repercussions, but despite their deplorable conduct, they remain my family. I choose not to press charges, I stated unequivocally. Detective Sullivan merely shrugged, making notations. That is your prerogative. We will commence processing their release, though it may take several hours. They have requested an audience with you before your departure. I will have them brought in. A few minutes later, another officer brought them into the room. They appeared utterly wretched, exhausted, terrified, and still clad in the previous day's attire. Mom's hair was disheveled. Kayla's face bore streaks of mascara. Dad's expression was one of barely contained fury. Justin, in contrast, appeared utterly bewildered. Avery, thank heavens! Mom exclaimed, reaching out to me. You must secure our release from this place. This entire situation is a profound misunderstanding. I recoiled, evading her grasp. There is no misunderstanding here. You illicitly entered my private property. We are family, Kayla whimpered, her tears resuming. You cannot simply abandon us in this manner. Observe me, I retorted, my voice unwavering. Justin finally spoke up. Oh, come on, Avery. Just post our bail, and we can resolve this at home. I am remitting nothing. You desire liberation? Devise your own means of egress. Dad slammed his hand on the table with a resounding thud. You are truly going to abandon your own parents in custody? You're truly going to violate your daughter's private residence and then assume the mantle of victimhood? We merely intended to utilize the house for the weekend, Mom offered weakly. The house upon which I changed the locks after you fabricated unauthorized copies of my keys. Because you twice desecrated my home and unequivocally refused to assume responsibility for your destruction. Because you instructed me to sleep in my car outside my own property. Kayla stopped crying and glared at me. You're being ridiculous. It's merely a structure. It is my home, acquired with my capital. Capital I have been generously dispersing among all of you for years, while you ceaselessly grumbled that I was insufficiently charitable. The room descended into absolute silence. Mom's face drained of all color. You cannot do that, Kayla whispered, her voice barely audible. I already have a pleasant existence, I concluded, turning to leave. I walked out of the police station and drove home. Over the next few weeks, my phone ceaselessly chimed with calls from distant relatives whose acquaintance I barely maintained. My cousin Melissa called to tell me that Mom and Dad had, astonishingly, pledged my lake house for her engagement party. You should have consulted me first, I informed her. But they assured me it was acceptable. They do not hold proprietorship over my residence, Melissa. They possess no authority whatsoever to promise it to anyone. She hung up on me. Through mutual acquaintances, I became privy to the full extent of the fallout from my financial divestment. Justin and Kayla, unable to meet their rent obligations, were compelled to return to their parents' home. Mom and Dad grappled with mounting utility bills in the absence of my monthly contributions. Dad was forced to undertake additional shifts at work, and Mom began discussing the necessity of securing part-time employment. Unsurprisingly, the collective blame was directed squarely at me. According to the pervasive family gossip network, I was deemed cruel and self-serving, having callously abandoned my kin over petty grievances. I was accused of allowing affluence to corrupt me, of forgetting my humble origins. I promptly blocked all their phone numbers and unfollowed their social media accounts. I had no desire to endure their incessant grievances or their manipulative attempts to coerce me into resuming their financial subsidies. For the first time in years, I was retaining my entire remuneration for my sole benefit, and it felt utterly liberating. A month later, I was back at my lake house, basking in its profound tranquility. The robust security system afforded me absolute confidence that I would remain undisturbed. I spent the weekend on my deck reading and working on personal coding projects without a single interruption. My family still perceive me as the antagonist in this narrative. They believe I disproportionately reacted and that I should extend forgiveness and resume their financial patronage. But herein lies the profound epiphany that dawned upon me during all those quiet mornings on my deck, as I observed the sunrise over the waters that unequivocally belonged to me. Their opinions now hold no sway over me. I spent years serving as their personal financial conduit, enduring their constant condemnation of every acquisition and decision I made. They unequivocally demonstrated their true estimation of my worth when they barred me from my own dwelling and callously suggested I sleep in my vehicle. They laid bare their priorities when they flagrantly refused to assume responsibility for their messes, presuming my affluence rendered me solely responsible. I am neither wealthy enough to purchase their respect, nor foolish enough to continue making the attempt. I am irrevocably severed from them until they learn to treat me as a fellow human being rather than a mere financial instrument. And truthfully, I hold no great anticipation for such an awakening. Indeed, the individuals who profess to love us most can, ironically, be the most voracious in their taking. Familial loyalty, at times, is merely a deceptive facade for outright financial exploitation. And occasionally, The most profound act of self-preservation is to disengage from those who perceive you solely as a monetary resource. Thank you for lending your ear to this narrative. If its resonance has touched you, I encourage you to disseminate it to others who may find solace or empowerment within its message. And do not neglect to leave a comment or subscribe for further accounts of discovering the fortitude to prioritize yourself when others refuse to. Remember, one instructs others on how to treat them through the boundaries they permit, the behaviors they cease, and the actions they reinforce.